In 1988, one Decepticon destroyed more Transformers in a single afternoon than millions of years of war ever had. His name was Starscream. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, Starscream was unforgettable. The coward, the schemer who spent every episode plotting against Megatron, only to be humiliated every single time. The joke, the clown. But what if that was never the real Starscream? What if the cartoon never told you the truth about who he really was? Because in the pages of Marvel Comics, Starscream became something Megatron never could. The most dangerous Transformer who ever lived. The story begins in issue 47. The Decepticons had converted their Caribbean island headquarters into a tropical vacation resort. ClubCon, beaches, tiki bars, human tourists walking straight into enemy territory. And standing at the entrance, greeting every arrival with practiced ease, was Starscream, the resort manager. It looked exactly like the kind of humiliating assignment the cartoon version of Starscream deserved. But hidden beneath the resort's artificial beaches, the Seacons were diving, not for treasure, for a sunken pirate ship resting on the ocean floor for centuries. Inside that wreck, sealed in a chest, were two encoded cassettes sent from Cybertron long ago. Ratbat, the ruthless accountant commanding this Decepticon faction, activated his real vision system, a full sensory holographic projection, and played them back. What Ratbat and Starscream witnessed took them back millions of years to a single moment on Cybertron that had nearly ended the war before it began. Issue 48. A being called the High Circuit Master Boltax had spent centuries guarding something no other Transformer had ever been trusted with. Deep within his temple of knowledge lay a collection of knowledge far older and vaster than himself. Not just military intelligence, not just tactical records. Everything, every memory, every identity, every fragment of knowledge produced by an entire civilization since the beginning of recorded Cybertronian history, compressed into one cosmic source. Boltax called it the Underbase, and Boltax understood something with terrifying clarity. A Transformer carrying the full Underbase would not simply become powerful. They would have access to every system, every weakness, every code that had ever existed in Cybertronian history. There would be no enemy strong enough to resist them, no army large enough to slow them down, no war left to fight. This is why Boltax never let anyone near it. Millions of years ago, a young lieutenant commander named Optimus Prime traveled to the Temple of Knowledge seeking Boltax's wisdom. He entered the chamber deliberately and stayed within the Underbase's light long enough to understand exactly one thing, that trying to absorb it could only lead to madness and death. Megatron arrived at the temple before Optimus could act, destroying the outer form Boltax had used to stand guard for millions of years before pushing his way inside to confront Optimus directly. Megatron killed Boltax, scattered his disciples, and moved directly toward the Underbase. Optimus Prime reached the temple controls, trying to contain the surge before Megatron could seize it. The resulting overload expelled the Underbase into deep space, not to protect it, to make sure no single being could ever claim it. That was millions of years ago. Soundwave had just discovered it was coming back. Its trajectory would bring it through Earth's solar system in less than 1 week. The cassettes held the course calculations, the exact window, the precise coordinates where it could be intercepted. And Starscream, standing in the dark behind Ratbat, understood something in that moment that no one else in the room did. He had just been handed the means to end everything. But there was one problem. Ratbat knew about it now, and every Decepticon army in range would converge on the same coordinates the moment word spread. Starscream couldn't outgun them. He couldn't outrank them. He couldn't simply take it. So he decided to make them destroy each other. Issue 49. Cold War. The Decepticons relocated to the Arctic. Scorponok, the commander of Megatron's rival Decepticon faction, already knew Starscream from their earlier encounter at Club Con and tracked the new base's signal to the Arctic on his own. When his ship arrived, Ratbat's forces nearly destroyed it, mistaking it for an attack. Starscream personally intervened to stop them, then quietly claimed he'd simply forgotten to warn Ratbat they were coming. Two commanders who despised each other, face to face, with an army behind each of them. Then Starscream let Buster Witwicky, their human prisoner, overhear a conversation about the Underbase near Scorponok's forces. He watched Scorponok's paranoia ignite. He added just enough information to push both factions past negotiation. Then he stepped back and watched two Decepticon armies tear each other apart on the Arctic ice. While they were destroying each other, Starscream walked into Scorponok's empty star cruiser and stole it. And then he made a decision that seems almost absurd today. Before leaving, Starscream carried Buster out over the Arctic ice himself, still in jet mode. He explained the communication beacon in Buster's hand, calmly, completely, but only the mechanics. What signal it would send, that the Autobots would arrive, that both Decepticon factions would unite to meet them. He never said why he wanted any of it to happen. Then he set Buster down on the ice and left him to freeze. He knew Buster would press the beacon, because pressing it was the only way to survive. Buster pressed it. The Autobots came, exactly as Starscream had calculated. Issue 50, Dark Star. The aerial bots pulled Buster off the ice, nearly dead. The full Autobot battalion converged. The Decepticons attacked. The battle only stopped when Buster managed to convey what Starscream had done, where he had gone, what was waiting for him. For the first time in the history of their war, Autobots and Decepticons stopped fighting each other. The Decepticons' own Arctic base, secretly retrofitted for space travel, became their vessel. They launched it together. They found Starscream already moving toward the Underbase, already letting its light touch the edges of his frame. Optimus Prime fired from the combined ship and blasted Starscream away from the source. That single fraction of a second was already enough. Starscream unleashed a single overwhelming blast of energy directly into the combined ship. The hull split. The engines died. Every Autobot and every Decepticon who had crossed the void to stop him was left drifting in the vacuum, helpless, finished. Then Starscream turned and descended toward Earth. He announced which cities he was going to attack. New York, Tokyo, Buenos Aires. He announced the order. He gave them time to respond, because it no longer mattered who knew. In New York, the veterans gathered. Jazz stepped forward. Jazz, who had survived millions of years of combat, who had negotiated truces between species, who had outlasted wars that erased entire armies. Starscream walked through him. Brawn charged next. The Autobot, whose physical strength had matched Decepticons twice his size across 100 battles. Brawn fell in the street. Blaster, who had never once retreated from a fight, went down seconds later. Hound, Blue Streak, Mirage, Hoist, Gears. Autobots collapsed in the same blocks, in the same afternoon, put down by the same hand. In Tokyo and Buenos Aires, the destruction did not slow, it accelerated. And then came the moment that made readers put down the comic and stare at the page. Grimlock walked into Starscream's path, the most powerful Autobot on Earth, the warrior who had defeated Devastator with his bare hands, who had led the Dinobots through battles that broke every other unit, who had challenged Optimus Prime for command of the Autobots and won. Grimlock was dismantled, not beaten, not driven back, dismantled in seconds, in the street, by the character every kid had spent years treating as a punchline. And then Goldbug fell. Goldbug, who had once been Bumblebee, the small, loyal, irreplaceable Autobot, who was the first face most children had ever associated with the word Transformer. He had survived everything the war could produce, and that afternoon, in those streets, he was simply gone. The only resistance that slowed Starscream at all came from Transformers with organic pretender shells or binary bonds to biological partners. Something in the organic matter disrupted the Underbase's energies. Not enough to stop him, but enough to leave a pattern. Optimus Prime had not gone to Earth. He had stayed on the Ark. Ratbat and Scorponok abandoned the surface and returned to confront him directly, convinced Prime was positioning himself to claim the Underbase alone. They found him building a rocket fitted with reflective panels, calibrated to intercept the Underbase and redirect its course. What they didn't know, Optimus wasn't trying to eliminate the Underbase forever. He was luring it and Starscream into a collision he had already calculated. Ratbat fired. Optimus struck him down. Scorponok then lunged for the redirected Underbase himself. Prime grabbed him with both hands and dragged them both out of its path. Then Starscream's sensors picked up a radio signal from the Ark. Buster, barely conscious in the medical bay, had reached for his radio to check on his brother in the middle of the destruction below. His voice went out over an open frequency. Starscream heard it. He calculated the variable in less than a second. An absent Optimus Prime, a reflective rocket, a redirected trajectory. It was a trap. He turned around and flew back to space. He was right. The Underbase had been redirected directly into his path. The accumulated knowledge and power of millions of years of Cybertronian civilization struck Starscream at full force. Every database, every memory, every identity ever fed into Boltax's repository hit him simultaneously. He grew beyond his frame. His structure mutated into something that had no shape and no name. He expanded into the void, and then he was gone. In the silence that followed, Optimus Prime told Scorponok what had actually happened. He had designed the rocket to redirect, not destroy. He had allowed Buster's radio call to go through deliberately. He had constructed the entire situation, knowing that Starscream's absolute refusal to accept anything less than everything would carry him directly into the one force in the universe that nothing could survive at full exposure. That is the Starscream the cartoon kept hidden from you. If this video made you see a character you thought you already knew in a whole new light, share it with someone who grew up watching Transformers. And if you want to know the dark origin of another classic villain that TV kept hidden from you, subscribe to the channel. Because the next video is about a character who seemed harmless but had a deeply disturbing past. See you then.